Hey there. Um, I'm using my microphone today. I had a new subscriber complain about the sound, so sorry about that. Had a lot of trouble getting the sound to sound like it's good, like some of the more polished presenters, but anyway, this is rough. So I made some videos recently proposing a couple of strategies that seemed almost too good to be true. I noticed that changes in price are correlated with the shape of the futures curve and with changes in volume. So for instance, the DVolume strategy, you would subtract the volume on day 2 from the volume on day 1, and you correlate that change in volume with the change in price from day 2 to day 1. And here's what I got. This is a cross plot of DVolume on the x-axis versus daily return, D price on the y-axis. It's a beautiful correlation. As DVolume increases, the daily return becomes more negative and vice versa. So it looks like you want to be in the market on days when volume's decreasing and vice versa. So you've heard it before and you'll hear it again. Correlation is not causation. So what went wrong? Instead of using today's data to predict tomorrow's performance, I was using today's data to predict what had already happened. Before I could react to the change in volume, the effect of that was already baked into the price. So I do geophysical data processing as my day job for a living. It's really shocking and horrible that I could make such a fundamental mistake. But, in the spirit of transparency, better to own up to it. So if I do it the right way, if I want to use changes in volume to predict the changes in price, how should I do it? I should measure today's change in volume, V2 minus V1, and use it to predict tomorrow's change in price, S3 minus S2. So when I plot today's D volume versus tomorrow's D price, we get an entirely different plot. You'll notice, for one, that there's no obvious visual correlation. The best fit line, the R squared, is pretty small versus the previous plot where it was about 0.4. So the best fit line actually implies the opposite trend, the opposite conclusion of what I was saying before. So as volume increases, we tend to see larger price increases tomorrow. So how would you trade this? If you had a method to estimate today's change in volume before the end of the trading day, you could use that estimate to enter a trade before the end of day 2. So you notice that prices often gap up or down from day to day. So this method would overcome it, but there's risk in the estimate. If you don't want to make an estimate of today's volume before the end of the day, you have to wait until the start of day 3 to enter your trade. So if there's a big gap up, you would not take part in that. So here's a cumulative return of the SPY over the past year compared to 2 DVolume strategies. So the blue curve is the simplest. Whenever today's volume, DVolume, is greater than 0, we go long. The orange curve says go long whenever today's DVolume is greater than minus 10 million. So the returns of these 2 strategies are frankly far more believable, but still, not trivial, not a trivial improvement over just buying and holding. So here's some key statistics on these 2 strategies. If you just held SPY for 367 days, you'd have a win rate of 55% and a cumulative return of 26.53%. If you trade the DVolume greater than 0 strategy, the simple one, you're only in the market 180 days, but your win rate is 56%, and cumulative return is 10% higher. So if you trade the more inclusive DVolume greater than 10 million strategy, you're in the market about 73% of the time. The win rate's comparable, and the cumulative return is still pretty solid. So why would you trade the second strategy? Simply, it's because the average trade duration is longer. If you trade the DVolume greater than 0 strategy, the first one, you're basically day trading. You're in and out of the market frequently, and there's risk there. With the second strategy, you'll stay in the market longer. You don't have that issue with having to maybe estimate the volume before the end of the day. If your trade duration on average is 7 days, then That's not a big issue. So anyway, I apologize for screwing up before, but you know, I don't make these videos as someone. This is a disclaimer. I don't make these videos as someone who knows exactly what to do, and I'm not educating you. I'm learning in my free time, and I communicate what I learn to you. And there's a risk of being wrong. When you do research in the real world, you screw up. And I like the real world versus the fantasy world of YouTube, where everything is simple and makes perfect sense, and every strategy is a ticket to easy money. So anyway, I'm gonna kind of wrap my head around this, and I'll start trading it. I'll get out of my previous stuff. I'll make another video on IV slope. It's an interesting. There's also the same causality problem exists with the IV slope, but I'll go into that in another video. So anyway, I look forward to your comments, and you can mock me for my mistake, but see you next time.